I found this piece on Facebook Marketplace for $100. A little more than I usually pay at a thrift store for something like this, but the odds of finding a mid-century modern dresser at a thrift store are not good. As I was assessing the work that needed to be done, I was dreading all the sanding that I knew I had to do by hand on all the drawers and the face of the dresser. Well, winding hasn't gotten anyone anywhere, so I began with removing the drawers and feet and getting right to work. I use a paint stripper to remove the clear coat from all the surfaces. This really speeds up the sanding process, making sure you are leaving a nice liberal coat of stripper on the wood. After about 45 minutes, it's ready to be scraped off. This is the most satisfying part, kind of like peeling after a bad sunburn. Anyway, after scraping off all the loose debris, I use a 60 grit sandpaper to get down to the bare wood. Then work my way up to 220 grit to get it ready to receive stain. I usually use OSMO for all my staining needs, but my local dealer was out of the dark tobacco color, and I had to find a close alternative at Home Depot. I settled on the color Rustic Brown by Behr. It has slightly more red than I would like, but it still came out looking really good in my opinion. The biggest issue I have using these types of stains is getting a consistent color throughout. After a few tries to get a blotch-free stained top, I ended up sanding up to 320 grit, which closes up the pores of the wood a bit more, preventing the stain from penetrating too quickly. I did try the conditioner before this and it wasn't helping very much. Sanding to a higher grit gave me the best outcome. After finishing up with the dresser, it was time to start the same process with all the drawers. I could not avoid the hand sanding that was to come any longer. I started by sanding all the crevices first, and then using a small sander to get the edges, and then a 5-inch sander for the tops. I sort of did this in the factory assembly line format. It worked out quite well actually. It took 3 coats of stain on the drawers to achieve the shade that matched the dresser. It was definitely worth the time, as long as there was no blotchiness. On to the finish. I use a white pad to buff in the clear matte finish made by OSMO. Since there were a lot of areas the buffer could not reach, I use a staining cloth to rub in the same finish throughout by hand. I usually do 2 to 3 coats of this finish. The downside to this finish is 8-hour wait times between coats. So this took me a couple days applying it 1 coat at a time after work. Now, for the hardware and legs, I decided to use the original hardware because there were not a lot of good choices since these poles were recessed. I did find some square recessed poles that would work, but they cost $50 a piece and I was not ready to spend $300 to replace 6 pull handles. When it came to spray painting all the hardware, I noticed that one of the small knobs was not like the other. Not sure how I missed it to this point. Either way, I was able to find a great replacement on Amazon, which arrived the very next day in the exact same color I painted the other hardware. There was one original piece from this dresser I decided not to put back on, which is the bottom trim piece between the front legs. It just looked out of place to me, in my opinion. With all the grays and light colors that are currently popular, it was a nice change to work on something like this. Let me know what you guys think. Would you have preferred a different look? And as always, if you are interested in any of the tools and materials that I used, it'll be in the description below. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.